So I'm talking about the rail strikes which are ongoing in the United Kingdom. It was on yesterday. There were rail strikes on Thursday, on Saturday, possibly other forthcoming days. So railway workers across a number of networks are striking over pay and conditions and so on. Now, not every railway man and railway woman is striking, but the majority are. Many of them belong to the RMT, the Railway Maritime and Transport Union, and its chief negotiator is Tim Shoveler. So on Tuesday, tens of thousands of railway workers walked out. And this is the biggest train strike for must be over 30 years. They want greater job security, they want their wages to rise in keeping with inflation, and they want better conditions, they say. So it's not known how long these talks are going to continue and whether this parley will have any positive outcome. But the two sides do seem quite far apart. Um, Anyway, so the strike is going on, which means people aren't buying tickets. Why would you buy a ticket when the train won't run? So the train companies got even less money, so even less able to afford things. There were problems for coronavirus. It was going for on and off for 2 years. At some point, passenger numbers are down to 5% of normal. Sometimes in deepest lockdown, I got on a train and I had not just the carriage to myself, it was my personal train. Even at Clapham Junction, there were no gate staff. The gates were just open. You could get on without buying a ticket. Now, of course, I didn't do that. But anyway, they still had the cost of running trains, not such a regular service, more or less like a Sunday service, but 7 days a week. But nevertheless, that cost them a lot, and there's obviously inspection, maintenance, repair needs to be performed as well on the rolling stock as well as the railways themselves. Salaries need to be paid even for those who are furloughed. Um, anyway, so the government gave them some money, but the government said we simply can't afford to give you more money. So fares are going to have to rise. But the trouble is, people who have to work face to face are tend to be the less well-paid workers, shop assistants, cleaners. I'm not sure, factory workers, who also farm labourers, maybe check-in staff at airports and hotels and things like that, and air stewardesses, cooks. But teachers, I suppose, doctors, nurses. Some of the people who work in person are well paid, but the majority of them are badly paid. People who can work at home are largely things like accountants, lawyers, engineers, often highly paid white collar jobs. So if fares rise, that's going to disproportionately impact the lower paid. And the well paid jobs, often they're working at home 1 day a week, several days a week, or more or less permanently. So new timetables being set. So because there were virtually no trainings running on Tuesday, a lot of trains weren't in place, and Wednesday to go to take off to start where they should do first thing in the morning. So there are about 60% of trains ran on Wednesday. So, but about 20% of trains were running on Tuesday, about 20% on Thursday. So I take my hat off to those who are courageous enough in the railway sector, those who are moral enough to carry on working anyway, who disagree with this strike. So no praise is too high for them. They face an awful lot of pressure, blackmail, ostracization from their colleagues, and there they are serving the travelling public. So they do deserve a very hearty round of applause. Not saying that all railway workers are bad, no, far from it, by no means. So I've been at least 48 hours of disruption. Now, there was an attempt to strike indeed on Saturday, but that did not come to fruition. So, anyway, Boris Johnson says the public's got to tough it out and we mustn't give in to this. There are 40,000 members of the RMT, mostly work for Network Rail, and there are 13 different railway operators around the United Kingdom. And virtually all the RMT workers went on strike. So there were virtually no trains running in Scotland and indeed in Wales, Cornwall and Dorset, Chester, Hull, Worcester all severely affected. The London area wasn't as badly affected, but on the London Underground, the RMT workers walked out, and that largely paralysed London Underground. A few lines had a limited service. But there are areas of the country which weren't too badly impacted. So more people driving, not hugely more than normal actually. A lot of people chose to work from home. It really hurt people trying to go to Wimbledon to see the tennis. From people who were trying to go to Glastonbury for the festival. Well, this weekend they'll be going. People doing their GCSEs and A levels and so on. I cycled a very long distance yesterday, there and back. Quite enjoyed it. It was very good weather, but not everybody has that option. It's just too far, or they're too infirm they can't cycle. Um, so there's no strike on today, Wednesday, but as I say, things are far from normal at the moment. So the RMT General Secretary is Mike Lynch. He was there at the picket lines. Quite a few Labour MPs, they also protested. And Lisa Nandy applauded what they're doing. I think a very unwise positioning from her to take the side of this militant trades union against the travelling public and to damage the economy when it's already very fragile. The RMT wants a pay rise of 7%. And the government saying we're going to offer 3%. That's it. Well, the employers really 3% max. Inflation is rising, it's 9%. The Bank of England say it's going to reach 11% this October, and that's just eye-watering. So there's also modernisation plans. Anyway, which probably means that their jobs will be less secure, there'll be more technology taking over. Why don't we have self-driving trains? And these train drivers are often paid £60,000 a year pressing stop and go. Admittedly, there are less well-paid staff, gate staff, railway dispatch staff, other platform staff, people behind the information desk, and so on. Yes, it is. Hi. Yeah, there were. They're on the table. The one at the front hall table. Okay. Sorry about that. So anyway, it's about modern working practices where they're going to accept those. So 1,800 jobs are going to be slashed. So who's going to go? That ideally voluntary redundancy. There'll be some attrition, some people who retire, who die, who resign for whatever reason, simply not replaced. It won't take too long to phase out 1,800 jobs, but the technology is going to take over. But these people, certainly the train drivers, will never be so well paid again. Now, the thing about train drivers is you don't need any particular qualifications before you go for that, but you don't get that job straight away. You have to sort of work with the railways, doing whatever, being a ticket inspector, gate staff, and if you're successful in a few years, you can train to be a railway driver, but they get very good conditions and early retirement and free travel and all sorts and so on. But that's because they got us by the short and curlies. And if we don't give them what they want, they could palsy the United Kingdom. I think it's terrible. So notice this has been across most of the United Kingdom. I'm not sure about Northern Ireland actually, whether it was impacted because those are actually still state-owned, unlike the rest of the UK. Um, so some agency staff are replacing workers, but not a lot. A lot of the most skilled jobs you can't get agency staff to do. So the train operators may go bust. Passenger numbers, I mean, have only just about recovered to pre-pandemic levels because some people like working from home and they'll never completely go back to working in person in the office or wherever. So I think for weeks they're going to be strikes now and again, and it's terrible. And I really wish they didn't do this. I'm reluctant to say it ought to be forbidden, but it does impact so many people just so much. You can go on buses, more buses are laid on, but there's a limited capacity for that. It's not enough to make up for the lack of rail capacity. On the railways, the conditions are fairly bad, even on an ordinary day anyway at peak times. The traffic is fairly bad in major UK cities anyway, even on a good day. So, but when the trains aren't running, it's horrific. Well, that's a lot from me. I'm sad that we're going to see a lot more of these rail fares. And fares, these rail strikes, fares are really high as it is, some of the most expensive in the world, and yet it's not the best service. So what is to be done? Um, because we need more railways, not less, as the population is growing. Rail travel is relatively green, very low carbon emission per passenger, far more environmentally friendly than going by car, for instance. Thanks for watching. Please donate on PayPal. Bye.